Voila! Here I am. Welcome to the Leo Zagami Show, special Wednesday edition. Illuminati News, Illuminati Confessions, celebrating 20 years of Illuminati Confessions online this year in 2026. So here we are with another special show for you, an extra show, which is made possible because of our sponsors. Because our sponsors, guys, because without them, we couldn't be here 2 times a week now. So thank you to Larry Frascella and Hio Uzumaki. Thank you so much. And we like to thank our sponsors formally with a nice applause. Here we go with the applause. Thank you so much to our sponsors. Here we go. We are present more than ever with our Wednesday edition today, dedicated to something really unusual and particular, coming from France, the land where Freemasonry still holds a grip on the whole system. You might say, but maybe in America we still have Freemasonry, but it's a different thing compared to what is going on over there. That's for sure, my friends, for sure. In fact, 22 people have been put on trial for the participation to an alleged hit squad that was controlled by the Athanor Lodge number 141. So let's talk about this lodge. Let's explain to our international audience what we are talking about. And of course, welcome everybody. And I hope you are preparing for a great and holy Easter, all of you. Now, I have just published this article, which you can find on leozagami.com. Here we are. Here we are. Let me check out that. Here we are. Yes. Okay, so what is the article all about, and what is really telling you more than the mainstream news has already told you? Because this news is really spreading like wildfire all over the place. This is the latest article dedicated to it on people.com, how a batched contract killing exposed Freemason mafia network inside French secret society as murder trial begins for 22 accused, 13 of which are actually risking life in prison because of their criminal activities. Now, the Athanor Lodge 141, located in Paris, in the suburb of Puteaux, was part of the Grand Loge de l'Alliance Maçonnique Française. So this obedience, which itself derives from a more regular obedience known as the Grand Loge Nationale Française, which is recognized by most US Grand Lodges, suspended all the activities of Athanor Lodge 141 when the scandal initially erupted in February 2021. Apparently, this Grand Lodge understood the dangers of what was happening, because in July of 2020, the former Athanor Lodge 141 was really doing things that were completely irregular in every way, shape, or form, and not only irregular by Masonic standards, but also criminal. So there is a lot of talk about this whole thing that was described by the British Times like Freemasons, bored spies, and a murder for hire scandal at France's MI6. Two guards who had already dreamt of going undercover were allegedly tricked into a plot to kill a Mossad agent, who was in fact simply a business coach. Now, we know that I have published 12 books dedicated to my Illuminati confessions, which are very detailed, especially when it comes down to the various differences between continental Freemasonry and, of course, so-called regular Freemasonry under the United Grand Lodge of England. We know that the continental Freemasonry, otherwise known also as the liberal Freemasonry, derives its regularity from the Grand Orient of France and the Grand Lodge de France, while instead the Anglo-Saxon form of Freemasonry, which is deemed as regular by the United States, by standards here also in the United States, is controlled by the let's say the Mecca of Freemasonry, which is Great Queen Street and the United Grand Lodge of England. I started with volume 1 of my confessions to try to explain how things worked out, and then through the other volumes of my confessions, I was able to give you all the details possible and imaginable. In volume 5 of my confessions, I also explained the decline of the Western initiatic system and the decline of the West in general that reflects from it. Now, what has happened in France is really an incredible story, because it actually involved also members of the Directorate General for External Security, the DGSE, which is the French equivalent of the MI6. And these people in 2020 thought they were really playing a big role, like kind of 007s of France with license to kill. And they actually went and started this operation, these members of this obedience, which is the Great Lodge of the French Masonic Alliance, which is, like I said, a schismatic obedience, which needs to be explained a little bit before we can go, of course, into the various details. I mean, 22 people are on trial for carrying a wide range of crimes, from aggravated assault and criminal conspiracy to attempted murder, and all this on behalf of a Masonic lodge in the Paris suburb of Puteaux. At least 4 of the accused appear to be members of this lodge. 7 defendants, including former intelligence agents, soldiers, and businessmen, face now life imprisonment, and some say even 13 of the 22 on trial risk life imprisonment. So we have still to see how the judge, of course, will in the end decide, and they will deliver the sentence. So we might be more clear further on. But the interesting thing here is that you have at least a few officers of French intelligence services. And from my own personal experience, within the Monte Carlo Lodge the Monte Carlo Lodge of the P2, based in the Principality of Monaco, traditionally hold together a bunch of Italians and French members, mainly. Then you had also maybe Americans, the occasional English, but mainly the members of this P2 lodge, which I was part of, was fueled with people from actually the Grand Loge National de France, the one which then gave birth to this new obedience, which started with, they claim to want to bring back some kind of regularity, though the regularity, like I said, is still to this day, by international standards, given to the Grand Loge National Français. Instead, this new obedience is still popular, very popular, because they have actually managed to mix all sorts of rituals within their fold, including the Christian-only rectified Scottish Rite, for example, or the universal and controlled by the Sabbatean Frankists, Memphis and Mizraim. So, I mean, they have quite a different approach than other obediences, which either focus on certain rites or on others. So either they focus on the more continental rites or on the ones that are usually practiced under the United Grand Lodge of England. Now, it's true that the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite originated also through France, passing through Santo Domingo with the various history references that always go back to France, because France was the place where these high degrees, which then came to shape up and form itself ultimately as the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite, they came from the Chevalier Ramsay speech in the early 1700s, which claimed that the origins of Freemasonry were not the guilds as the English were saying, but rather the Templars, as and this Chevalier Ramsay was the mentor of a member of the Stuart family. So there was actually behind the scenes a division also based on the fact that certain Freemasons wanted to bring back a Catholic monarch on the throne of England, and others instead, the prevailing ones that eventually were more successful, were of course in support of what we could call the Hanoverian League. So here we are today discussing a topic of interest, of course, for my viewers, which is shocking the world, because people are not used to seeing a Masonic lodge involved in such a scandal. I mean, of course, in the 1980s, we had the P2 scandals. And in fact, there is certain similarities that I'm gonna talk about. As you can see, Euronews also is giving and showing, by the way, the first day of the trial, which was a couple of days ago, with over 20 people put on trial over murders and hit squads. 22 people, including intelligence and police officers, are on trial, says Euronews. An alleged Masonic Lodge assassin squad and mafia-style crimes. 22 people went on trial in France on Monday on charges of murder and other serious crimes. And even here, they talk about the involvement of the French Foreign Intelligence Service. Now, from my own experience, the French Foreign Intelligence Service has always been involved in Freemasonry. They were actually also involved in the Monte Carlo Lodge, and those French Freemasons involved in the Monte Carlo Lodge, who were also intelligence assets, they were also with the Grand Lodge National de France, which then became, in 2012, in the midst of an internal crisis of the Grand Lodge National de France, they became something different, which, like I said, offers also a wide range of rights, which for non-Masons, of course, might mean nothing, but for Freemasons is, of course, a very unusual kind of setup. This is the website, the official website of the Grand Lodge de l'Alliance Maçonnique Française. So they are a Grand Lodge of a Masonic Alliance of France. Remember, prior to becoming this obedience, which by 2015 already gathered the attention of many Freemasons in France, most members were a part of the regular Grand Lodge National de France. So the lodge was officially suspended and closed by the Grand Master in February 2021, following the discovery of this criminal network, which was operated by a worshipful master. The worshipful master is the guy in charge of your local lodge. Then you have the Grand Master, who is instead in charge of all the lodges that form the Grand Lodge, made up of the worshipful masters of all the various lodges. Now, founded in April 2012, this Grand Lodge de l'Alliance Maçonnique Française is now still very popular, and it has 15,000 members. So it's not a small Masonic obedience. It's not just like a few hundred Masons. It's 15,000 Masons, and they have 750 lodges. Lodge number 141 in the suburbs of Paris, Athanor Lodge 141, is the lodge that is being incriminated. Now, Freemasonry, contrary to what Candace Owen says, is not born in France. Speculative Freemasonry traditionally, as we all know, is born in England in 1717. They gave birth to the concept of a Grand Lodge. Freemasonry already of course, existed before then, but every single lodge was independent. So we already have traces of initiations in Freemasonry. The first one, very popular, at least amongst the people who are interested in Freemasonry, is the initiation of Elias Ashmole, who was also a member of the Royal Society. And then Freemasonry in 1717, they got together in this pub, the Goose and the Gridiron, and these lodges formed a Grand Lodge. Then later on, they also put together a constitution that prohibited certain things and approved others. Now, in that time in England, there was two different Masonic factions, reflecting also what I told you earlier, the dispute between the Hanoverian, the Protestant Freemasons, and the Catholic Freemasons, which of course had the backing of the Jesuits. Now, going back to what has happened in France, it's very important that people understand that today in modern societies, the idea sometimes exaggerated, sometimes not, that career advancement requires affiliation with Masonic lodges, service clubs, lineage societies, university secret societies, or even the Opus Dei, is still prevalent and remains popular. So I have explained in my Confessions of an Illuminati the fact that, of course, you have people who join eager to change their life, these societies, and don't achieve anything, and they are just used by the people on top. And then you have, of course, the elite that joins at times also societies which are much more restricted. Like, for example, we discussed a few weeks ago the Zodiac Club, the exclusive secret society made of only 12 members, which Jeffrey Epstein was connected to. That is a different thing from an ordinary Masonic lodge. But then you have, of course, Masonic lodges which are irregular in the way they operate, and they try to be more elitarian. Now, this lodge here, Athanor, what does the name Athanor mean, first of all? Athanor is a typical alchemical concept, because Athanor is actually, in alchemical terms, it's the furnace which is used to provide that is important for the alchemical digestion. Remember, this is all symbolic, and the Athanor symbolically is this furnace within you, where you are transforming yourself. And Athanor, in this case, instead, there was a bunch of crooks who I think were actually not really into the esoteric side. They were probably using the esoteric side to cover up instead this hit squad, which was instead doing criminal activities that have nothing to do with the esoteric side of Freemasonry. Now, I know that outside there, in the profane world, as Freemasons call it, there is a lot of confusions about Freemasonry. But let me tell you, I've been a 33 degree of Freemasonry. I've been in Freemasonry most of my life. And so I know what is true and what is false. I see that Candace Owen at times tends to bring out things from a perspective that is not, of course, a perspective of somebody who has experienced such things directly. Now, the fact that in this lodge, there were officers of the French DGSC intelligence service, the fact that the ringleader, Jean-Luc Bacour, and then also Frédéric Baillot and Daniel Bellieu were people with a lot of connections, means that these people who are now being accused and are standing on trial, most of them have probably no idea of the way they have been used. Because I tell you, when I saw this news about the, we had also my colleagues at InfoWars writing a brief article about it. We had a lot of people from the mainstream news writing about it, publications like The Times, Euronews, The Independent. It all reminded me of what happened with the P2 Lodge. At the time, there was this gentleman, he died last year, Francesco Pazienza. Francesco Pazienza was a former SISMI agent, so an agent of the Italian military intelligence at the time. He was involved with the P2 and with all the dark secrets of the P2. And eventually he ended up being arrested and spent the rest of his life in jail, at least until 2007. Then partially he was permitted to go out and lead a normal life. But he died last year, of course, in a way, forgotten by everybody. And I'm sure that if he knew how he was used, he would probably not function as a useful idiot. Because you see, these people might be intelligence agents, but then there is always people who are higher than you, people who are, of course, the puppet masters behind the scenes. And one thing I noticed about Pazienza, because we had a lot of friends in common, was that even after all these years in jail, he never really opened up or criticized the worshipful master of the P2. And there is a reason, because you see, the real truth about this trial and these people who will inevitably end up in jail is that if they talk, they might be killed even in jail. So there is no way of escaping the control of the people who have actually led you as mercenaries into these operations. That these defendants from what is now called in France the Athanor affair, they were thinking they were French 007s with orders to kill, and they thought that they were untouchable. It's interesting that the typical Masonic Lodge member, especially in Europe, is a small stature but big in ambition kind of folk, as described very well in a movie that came out in 1977 in Italy called Il Borghese Piccolo Piccolo, which is a movie in which the main protagonist joins Freemasonry not because he wants to have an esoteric experience or learn the supposed secrets of Freemasonry. He simply wants to join because he wants to find a job for his son. He knows that they are powerful and influential people in Freemasonry. And so he ends up joining this lodge. And as you can see from the images I'm showing, he goes through an initiation. And I must say that the way the initiation was portrayed in this movie of Monicelli, curiously enough, Mario Monicelli, who was a great film director, suicided himself because in the end he understood that Italy was way too corrupt. Some people might say he might have even been killed, but in reality it's one of the rare cases in which Monicelli ended up suiciding himself for desperation, because he gave an interview before suiciding himself saying the Italians never oppose this and they never did a real revolution in this country. So if you ever want to check out this movie, I gave the details about it in my latest article you can find on leozagami.com, together, of course, with all my latest articles. You can also support me through GoFundMe, through Cash App, but also through the purchase, of course, of my books. And we are living in very critical times. And this book, Volume 10 of my Confessions, is one of the most relevant for the time we are living now. Islamic Freemasonry and the secret societies behind the eternal war in the Middle East. Trust me, guys, the situation is really not a good situation. we have now also a magical war of sorts, aside from the war that is already happening on the ground. Accusations of use of black magic comes from both sides, from Israel as well as from Iran. A video was actually published by an organization that wanted to portray somehow the Iranians sated with these occult rituals. But in reality, this video ends up portraying also all the demons of the Old Testament with references, of course, also to the Islamic traditions that claims they are genies. Now, at one point, there is in this video, which is, of course, also including those celebration of the revolution with the burning of Baal, there is actually a ritual. And the interesting thing in this video, which, like I said, is a video circulating online, which of course is addressed to the Iranians, claiming they are playing with fire if they're playing with black magic. But the interesting thing is also this reference, 11:33. 11:33. We know that in Aleister Crowley's tradition, 11 is the key of all ritual, and in fact also in the Supreme Council of the Ancient Celtic Scottish Rite, we only have 11 members, because 11, 11, 11 ultimately is 33. So it's quite interesting that a video like this one is circulating, and that they are both, on both sides, they are accusing each other, both Israel and Iran, of course, and not the United States of America, because here in the Western world, we seem to have detached from the metaphysical and magical reality. So there doesn't seem to be an interest in evoking such things. In the past, for example, in the 1970s, when there was actually a fierce uprising in Northern Ireland with the IRA, they often brought up in psychological operations, MI6, the use of pushing the idea of black masses, Satanism in Northern Ireland, and it actually worked out. I can show you if you want. I think Northern Ireland and the IRA satanic scare is still probably present and after you see this one, you might understand what I'm talking about better. Satanic Panic, how British agent stoked supernatural fears in troubled British military intelligence agency in Northern Ireland, used fears about demonic possession, black mass, and witchcraft as part of psychological war against emerging armed groups in the Troubles in the 70s. So there was absolutely at the time a almost well, definitely a strategic use of such fears. While instead here today in the Western world, such fears are not really considered, and we are left instead with the Israeli and the Iranians attacking each other with these fears. Check out this video.
ترجیح میدم مورد اول رو با اونی که شاید جذابیت بیشتری داره که خیلی حاشیه برانگیز شد شروع کنیم.
بله بفرمایید.
آی 24 رسانه اسرائیلی هستش که حالا به زبان انگلیسی من آوردم، نسخه انگلیسیشه. همونجوری که در عنوانش میبینید اشاره میکنه به موشک‌ها و شعارهای ضد اسرائیلی که در جشن 47مین سالگرد.
So here they are basically explaining what is happening magically by one side accusing the other of using black magic, but in reality we are left wondering if the Israelis are using black magic or if the Iranians are using black magic. There is a very strong, there has always been a very strong tradition on both sides when it comes down to the use of magic. However, aside from magic, the situation is deteriorating. So now we have also, as you heard in the last few hours, Trump saying one thing, now the Iranian president saying another, and actually the Iranian president also sending an open letter to the American people, an open letter that wants to clarify their position. It seems like we are heading towards uncertainty, especially in Europe, where they already have one war with Ukraine and Russia, and now in the south they are also confronted by a destabilized Middle East. Apparently, the latest news from Italy is that today, if you want to transfer money, and you want to transfer money from one bank account to the other, you are not permitted. There is some kind of blockade in the banking system that is kind of indicative of the troubled times that we are living in. But let's go back to this situation with the Athanor Lodge. It might seem only a local French thing. It might seem something so distant from us here in the United States of America. But trust me, there has been cases also of irregular lodges, even here in California, which I've discussed previously on the Leo Zagami show. There has been also cases of irregular Prince Hall lodges, which have been dealing with alleged criminal activity. So it's not only a French thing, though, of course, in this case, we are talking about a lodge which created a hit squad made of people who thought they could get away with murder, they could get away with killing even a race car driver. And I mean, it's incredible how these people really thought they could get away with so much. But now they stand accused of the murder of race car driver Laurent Pasquali, which happened in 2018, which is a rather big deal for this mafia network inside this lodge of Freemasonry, which comes from an obedience which claimed was being reformed and was trying to lead the mission to purify Freemasonry in their essence. Well, it doesn't seem like they purify Freemasonry. It seems like they are simply making things worse, because this new Masonic obedience is simply giving probably too much independence to certain lodges, and this independence then gives the possibility to those Freemasons to act in a criminal way. Interesting, like I said, also is the fact that you have this anti-Semitic thing that I noticed myself in French Freemasonry. There is a side of French Freemasonry which is completely controlled by the Sabbatean Frankists, and that is mostly present in the Grand Orient of France, Grand Lodge de France, and in obediences which practice mainly the Memphis and Mizraim rite, aside from also members of the ancient and accepted Scottish rite within the Grand Lodge de France, as well as the Grand Orient of France. But then you have the anti-Semitic forces, which are instead usually present in Christian-only rites, like the rectified Scottish rite, and those Christian, between brackets, Christian forces seem to have been the ones behind the actions of the Athanor Lodge on trial. I'm sure that these people will never really say the whole truth, because like I said earlier, they will probably be eliminated. But I wanted to make sure that here our audience, the audience of the Leo Zagami show, that for many, the Illuminati Confessions celebrates 20 years. And in these 20 years, I told you over and over again that these realities existed, that there were people doing these kind of things, that they claimed to have license to kill, that they had hit squad networks within their lodges. It's not like a first time kind of situation. So I hope that you appreciated today's show. I want to thank again Hio Uzumaki and Larry Frascella, who made this extra show on Wednesday possible. And of course, we will see.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society.
Illuminati News.
Free and independent.
Yes, we continue to be free and independent, thanks to you. And of course, don't miss our next show. Please put like, please subscribe to all my channels in order to avoid possible censorship. And remember, my latest books, Volume 12 in particular, as well as The Rise and Fall of a Frankist Monster, are particularly relevant. But today, I also wanted to tell you about Volume 10, because it's not been one of my best sellers. Sincerely, it's not been one, but it's so relevant to what is happening today in the Middle East that you absolutely need to get this book.
Illuminati want my mind, soul, and my body. Secret society, trying to keep it on.
مانند عهد عتیق و قرآن